in the hands of a mastermind of terror.
I want to play a game with Lieutenant McClane.
What kind of game?
Simon Says.
The path to revenge leads straight to John McClane.
If we don't do what this guy says, he's going to blow up another public place.
Well, why me? What has it got to do with me?
I have no idea. He just said it had to be you.
Nice to be needed.
I'm not jumping through hoops for some psycho. That's a white man with white problems. You deal with it. Where the hell are you going, McClane? I know what I'm doing. Not even God knows what you're doing.
This guy wants to pound on you till you crumble.
Are you aiming for these people?
No. Well, maybe that mine.
He wants you to dance to his tune and then kill you.
Bruce Willis, Jeremy Irons, Samuel L. Jackson.
Congratulations. You're still alive.
Yippee-ki-yay, mother...
In a John McTiernan film, Die Hard with a Vengeance.
And welcome back to the Film Wheel Cast. It is 2022. I hope everyone had a great new year. I am joined, as usual, by the very sexy, the very doit, very beautiful, very bearded Neil. How are you?
I'm very well, mate. You're right. I am bearded. That's about the only thing I can agree with that one. But
if anyone's seen Sons of Anarchy, you're OP. That's who you are. You are OP.
Well, I do love him, to be fair. So, maybe one day I'll look as good as him, but unlikely.
You do already. So, Die Hard with a Vengeance. It's 1995. Yes. So, which is 5 years after Die Hard 2. Which did anyone want another Die Hard? Was anyone expecting another Die Hard? What side of the fence are you on?
I don't know. I mean, I would have been 14 then. So, I don't know. Maybe they were. Maybe that's why they made it. I don't know. It was all right, wasn't it? We'll get to how we felt about it at the end, but I don't know. Did you think that they wanted another Die Hard at this time?
Well, I was 21 because I'm extremely old, and I still was into Die Hard films. I was really pleased that they brought it back again, because even though 2 is a bit piss poor, I still get off on number 1. And knowing it was coming back with Samuel L. Jackson, who plays Zeus in this, and off the back of, they've just done Pulp Fiction together, and Willis had done Last Boy Scout off the back of that, which, despite it getting slated, I still really enjoyed. And knowing that John McTiernan was back directing it, and you had Jonathan Hensley, who was meant to be Simon Says, and the first hour of this film is his original script.
Wow.
And it looked really good. The trailers looked really good, and it just got me buzzing, because you see Jules in Pulp Fiction, Samuel Jackson, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
So, and it's interesting. Go on, mate.
What would you say is this his best film, or is it Pulp Fiction, or is it something else?
It's certainly not Snakes on a Plane, I'll tell you that. But I think I like him in Pulp Fiction. I think as Jules, he's just brilliant. I think he's really underused in this film, and it's a real shame. I mean, obviously this will contain complete plot spoilers, as every podcast does, and probably mild language, as every podcast does as well. But
sorry about that.
But I thought it was underused. It was one of Samuel Jackson's best characters that he played, a most lifelike character to himself. But I kind of felt it was ticking the box, as in you had who was it, Lyle, the taxi driver in the first one, and you had Al as well. And then in the second one, you had Barnes, who was the other black guy who was played a part in it. And it seems very tropey that they're kind of like a buddy cop, that they're pairing him up with someone. But this was kind of, he's obviously in this film, he's back in New York. So he's left Los Angeles. He's back in the NYPD, and he's broken up with Holly Gennaro as well, his wife. And he's still a cop, but he's been suspended. He's an alcoholic, and he's bottom of the barrel. Where I think that the character John McClane is at his best when he's a bottom of the barrel piece of shit that no one expects anything, you know?
Yeah, he just doesn't care, does he? He's just bottom of the bit, like when they pick him up, don't they, later on? He's still pissed out of his face because he's been drinking that day. But no, apart from the fact, all he does is talk about how bad his head is throughout this entire film.
I love that.
Yeah.
Supporting a massive hangover by the looks of it, which is absolutely superb. And he's a really great character. I think he's fucking brilliant. I mean, these films, as they go on, they are terrible. Don't get me wrong; they really struggle. But I just think they're just so much fun, and it's way over the top, stupid plot lines that just exceed any common sense when they don't need to be as difficult as they are.
Yeah.
But again, this one, the plot in this one is just ridiculous and relies on so many different factors. Just like the second one, especially if it didn't snow, they would have been completely fucked in Die Hard 2.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're completely right. It's very convoluted. They like a convoluted plan.
They
don't
do.
they? In the Die Hard films, the bad guys, they're like, right, we could do this. And we could do it pretty easy, but what we'd do is we really ramp it up and make it as difficult as possible with as many things that could go wrong put in place as possible.
Yeah,
but it'll be
so
fine.
Good. I think what was really good in this one, you know what you're getting with Die Hard. You know the ingredients, and it's like wrong place, wrong time, and just everything like that. It's so cliche, but it's great. And I really loved outside when you get the bomb going off in Manhattan. Oh, yeah. You've got the Summer in the City playing, the music's going, and it's people moving about, and it's a hot day, and it's a great song, really good song.
Great song.
And then you get that store just blowing up, and outside the store, I know it says Atlantic Couriers, isn't there, from the first one, where Hans Gruber, they all use Atlantic Couriers lorries, and you get that store blows up, and there's no dialogue, there's nothing whatsoever, and just bang, and it's just for effect is brilliant. The music stops, and that's what you're left with. It's just this. It is so effective.
It's a brilliant start to a film, isn't it? Like you say, it's nice and chilled out, nice day, blah blah blah. Start of a day, and then all of a sudden, bang, and it's like, right, you're into it now, straight into the action. It's like and let's be fair, this film doesn't stop. The action is constant, isn't it? From start to finish. From this point, that's it.
Yeah, 100%. As soon as that bang goes, it's like a bloody starting gun and a racetrack, and that's what makes this film just so good. And also, it's interesting. You've got Jeremy Irons, another Brit who plays Simon, who's really, really good. It's Hans Gruber, his brother. That's the connection, and it's obviously you've got Vengeance in the title. But I think what's different in this one is in the first Die Hard, Nakatomi Plaza was speaking to Al. He was his go-to man, but he was alone there. At the airport, we had the two police officers, the two brothers who were simpletons, and he was kind of alone. But this is the first time that he's got a really good team behind him, and they all are very efficient in what they're doing. You've got Charles, who works like the bomb disposal. You've got Connie, and you've got Joe Lambert. You've got Arthur Cobb, like the police captain. They're really, really good police officers. And it's the first time he's had like a team backing him up, and and I think the whole balance of him, Samuel Jackson, that he has to lead the way. Bruce Willis does, because it is a Die Hard film, but I think you've got a real good chemistry of everyone involved, and everyone. You haven't got the tropey idiot who's like the two police officers in the second one.
Yes.
They were tropes of themselves, of the characters, weren't they?
Yeah, it's a massive breath of fresh air in relation to that didn't have a couple of idiots, you're a fish in my pond and all this sort of nonsense, to quote the other film, Yeah, so no, it is good. It is good that he's surrounded by an actual team, and he's a disgraced officer, but he's sort of brought back in because he has to, as we'll get to, and it's brilliant. the way it's worked.
Yeah, and when I first watched this, I must admit I was a bit worried about the like the rhymes. Like obviously the bomb goes off and it goes to the police station with everyone rushing around trying to get something sorted out, and you've got Cobb who's like the captain, and then Simon rings him up, and he obviously wants to speak to John McClane, and they try and find him, and he's like washed out, as we said earlier. But when he starts giving him like the missions later on, it's all in rhymes, and I was worried they'd overuse the rhymes and it would just be a bit weird, but they don't. They use it to the right effect, don't they? Of the Simon Says games.
Yeah, no, they do. They do, to be fair. I think you're spot on, really. You do sort of think Blooming this is a bit repetitive, if you like. But no, I think it's done. But again, it's really well. I seem to remember this being the one I least enjoyed. But watching this again, I was sort of actually, it's a pretty well put together film, to be fair. And bits like that are quite clever.
Yes, yeah, and I do like it in the back of the van when they the first mission to a certain extent, or the test is to go to Harlem, and they're looking at the back, and he's just got his pants and vest on. He looks like shit, and they're telling him how much he looks like shit, and it's just great. He's just so hangover and wasted. It's just brilliant. It is so good.
Oh yeah. I mean, fancy being hungover, being suspended, being called into work, and then having to go to Harlem and put this sign on and walk around.
Yes, yeah.
Flaming heck.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? And it's great because that's when you go to. And when I first watched this, I thought Samuel Jackson's character was obviously called Zeus. I thought his name was Jesus.
Yes.
And it's really strange because even a bit later on, Bruce Willis says Jesus. He gets it wrong as well. But Samuel Jackson's character is really interesting because he said he just watched and was heavily involved in like Malcolm X, and he played a massive part of this character when he was being Zeus. And from there, I mean, the tempers even in America at that time were kind of frayed because they were just waiting for the O.J. Simpson the trial to finish, for him to be sentenced, and there was that kind of divide with black and white, and white people weren't going to watch black exploitation films and things like that. And it was a massive deal getting Samuel Jackson in this, and the character he plays, he's not a racist character, but he's kind of fully aware of the situation and like the politics going on at that time, that like the black neighborhoods should stand proud, and they're being kind of repressed by the white people and stereotyped. And he says that to his children of who are we going to rely on, like ourselves, and who are we going to be proud of, and who can we have a business and we don't need help from. And he puts it so well. And it's really reminded me of the Lawrence Fishburne character in, what's that film where Boys in the Hood?
Oh, right.
Very much kind of that representation of that, because they're stereotypes that they even comes out when he sees, and the line when he sees Bruce Willis walking around with that sandwich board, which cleverly enough, and I never realised that the N-bomb is I hate N-bomb. On that board was superimposed. It was blank. I never realised that.
Well, it's interesting because when he gets out of the van, when you're watching it, it is blank. It is completely blank when he gets out of the van, and it isn't until he starts moving around that you see the words and the awful N word that should never be used.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing they didn't want to do that, did they? Even filming it, they probably didn't want to walk around any neighbourhood with that on, even if it is for a film, because it could obviously cause such distress. So I like the fact that they did that and superimposed it rather than being cocky, and as a lot of film people are, I suspect.
It's so clever, isn't it? It looks really good. I never realised that was superimposed at all.
Completely.
And it's great when the kids obviously got that stolen stereo, and he's talking about like you're being used and life lessons, etc. And he says there's a white man standing in the street. He goes, well, not like, he goes, I've seen one. He goes, you ain't like this.
Uncle, you better come look at this.
What?
There's a white man standing in the street.
I seen one.
Not like this.
Dial 911. Tell the police to get up here quick. Somebody's about to get killed.
Yeah, I know.
And it's Bruce Willis just looks so helpful. And again, the reasons why he goes over there is really interesting as well. And he explains to him that if a white man gets shot in Harlem, the place is going to be flooded with trigger-happy police officers, and he just doesn't need it. So the reason why he's gone over there is to protect the neighborhood. And
well, that's it, isn't it? Because he says, doesn't he? He goes, if there's one dead white cop shot in there, then we'll have 1,000 white cops with bitchy trigger fingers.
Yes.
And it's just, you know, he's his character, you know, yes, he isn't, I wouldn't say he's racist. I know Bruce Willis accuses him of it later, saying, I think you are. And they have quite a good conversation about it. But he is very quick, isn't he, to jump on the colour stuff. Every single time, you know, when he speaks to Simon later, he's instantly, have you got a problem? Before he even says anything, his first words are, have you got a problem with Ebony? You know, so why are you making it about colour? You know, it's interesting. It is clever the way they did it, because it sort of does show that obviously the other side of the coin is that, you know, people are going to be sensitive to it, aren't they? If they hear of it all the time and are being persecuted, obviously your instant thing is that that's why I'm here, because you don't like who I am because of my colour. So it was. And
thankfully that Samuel Jackson, Zeus, had the common sense and pure luck on Willis's side that he actually believed that it was a cop, not just some kind of mental person, and that he didn't allow this gang who walks up to him to actually kick shit and just murder him, because the instructions from Simon are his colleagues remain 10 blocks away, so he's properly on his own. But it's really good the way he gets out of it. And he got the old classic gun tacked on back as well. And Samuel Jackson just rescues him. And it's great, because there is a kind of a certain chemistry there. But the only kind of one of the downsides for me is the fact that it doesn't go anywhere. That I think kind of more as the film goes on, that he's underused, Samuel Jackson, and they never resolve this not a race issue, but the differences between them. You know what I mean?
I think they both realise that neither of them actually give a shit about what colour they are. They are just, you know, they're just mates by the end of it, aren't they? And they're both after the same thing, and it's quite nice. I think, obviously, I've obviously got a slightly different opinion, but I think their character arc grows massively over this film, and by the end of it, it's like they've known each other forever. It'd be like me and you going down the pub and having a pint, sort of thing. That's how it felt like for me at the end of the film.
Yeah, because there's a few situations, especially by the fountain, where he's like, because where Willis just cannot work out. And it's clear that Samuel Jackson is the more intelligent out of the two.
Oh, definitely.
And one of the puzzles where he works it out, and Willis is getting really frustrated. and he says, go on, say it. You nearly said it. You wanted to say it. And he's like, well, I didn't. And that's what I'm kind of relating to when he's like, well, they never kind of talk about those issues and get those kind of issues resolved. You know what I mean? Because Willis has never made any comments in any of his Die Hard 1 or 2, and they've always teamed him up like the buddy cop with a black male, Argyle, and as I say, Barnes and Sergeant Al Powell and stuff like that. So I don't know whether this was politics at the time of what was happening.
Potentially.
And they were, McTiernan was dealing with it. Like, I honestly don't know. But
I don't know. But it's just interesting though, isn't it? Because at that fountain scene, he does say, he goes, go on, you're going to say it, weren't you? He's like, no, I was going to call you an arsehole. And that's when he turns around to him, doesn't he? He says, you know, you're racist because you just keep going on about this. And I've never said or implied anything about colour whatsoever. And he completely turns it back to Samuel Jackson. And I think that's at the point that Samuel sort of realises, hang on a minute, I need to leave this alone now, because it's my issue in relation to John McClane rather than it being the other way around. And I think that's when you see the relationship really sort of twist to being mates and really wanting to help each other out rather than Samuel having to be there just because he has to be there.
Yeah, I would have liked that because I'm picky. You know what I'm like. I would have liked that resolved, so I would have been aware
Fair
of it.
enough.
But that is just me. But I mean, one of the main focuses on this is the bombs, obviously.
Yes.
I do like it when you get Charles, who's the bomb expert, who comes in. They say that there was a bomb found by a fountain, and for a change, it isn't like the TNT, the Semtex, the dynamite. It's these chemicals which I'd never seen before prior to this film, and it's really good when he brings it in the office. And he kind of, on its own, one of the chemicals is red and white. On its own, it's fine. But when you mix them together and you obviously put pressure on them, then they're really dangerous. And the demo he gives, it scares the shit out of Connie in the office. She gets a great reaction. I love it.
This stuff is cutting edge. It's a binary liquid.
A what?
Like epoxy. 2 liquids. Now, either one by itself, you got nothing. But mix them. Ricky?
Charlie, you're gonna be wearing that shirt!
Christ almighty, Charlie!
Like I said, very cool stuff.
It's fucking fantastic, isn't it?
Imagine doing that in an office. Just
God, bloody hell, could you? Jesus, you'd be thrown out within an instant, wouldn't you? Jeez.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
And that kind of sets the stakes that these people, and he says that he's a nut, but he's a nut who knows loads about bombs. And it's simple and it's explained really, really well.
Yes.
And that Simon is really pissed that Zeus interfered, and I like the fact he refers to him as a Samaritan in this. I think it's worded so well, and that John McClane, because he's been in this situation so many times, he simply doesn't give a shit. All these threats, all these games. I don't know if it's his hungover or just old school terrorist. He just doesn't care, does he?
No, he doesn't give a shit, does he? He's like, just come down here and we'll sort out like men and all this sort of stuff. It's brilliant. And he starts stammering, doesn't he? Because he's upset him, and it's sort of
And even Samuel L. Jackson's reaction, that you learn that he hasn't got a lot of tolerance for idiots either.
Well, is the Ebony Samaritan there now?
You got a problem with Ebony?
No. My only problem is that I went to some trouble preparing that game for McClane. You interfered with a well-laid plan.
Yeah, well, you can stick your well-laid plan up your well-laid ass.
why don't you shove that up your ass? And it just hangs up, doesn't he? Like,
Yeah.
The chief is just like, please stop doing this, for crying out loud. You know, he's already blown up one building and he's threatening to blow up others, and you guys are just mugging him off on the phone. It's just,
brilliant.
It's brilliant.
And that's what you get, isn't it, with Samuel Jackson? With him, you get quality one-lines, and it is just absolutely brilliant. But so they set the first test out, or the rhyme and riddle, and I've got to admit, any of these rhymes, I'd be absolutely shite at working these out.
Both.
Now, John, there's a significant amount of explosive in the trash receptacle next to you. Try to run, and it goes up now.
Nobody's gonna run, but I got 100 people out here.
That's the point. Now, do I have your attention? As I was going to St. Ives, I met a man with 7 wives. Every wife had 7 sacks. Every sack has 7 cats. Every cat has 7 kittens. Kittens, cats, sacks, and wives. How many were going to St. Ives?
I was sat there going, I wonder if any of the lads have been able to figure these out, because if I went along, if this was me, we're all fucked, because there's no way on earth I'd ever get any of them.
No, I wouldn't. I really, really wouldn't. And I've got no patience either.
You, Stu? Never.
Yeah, I've guessed that from a few different podcasts, but yeah.
There's only one person going to St. Ives, and that's the guy that's going there originally. The rest of them, you know, they're not going. And I love the fact John McClane goes, well, where are they going then? And so he's just like, I don't fucking know. It doesn't matter.
That's what I'd be like. Well, they went there and no one knew. I won't look into it too much. And then they think, the bomb's going to blow up. So they dive on the floor, and people think they're mime artists and start giving them money. It's so funny.
It is good, isn't it? Yeah, and he goes, "Oh, it didn't blow up, obviously," because he says, "I didn't say Simon Says," which is unbelievable. He's proper toys with them, doesn't he? I mean,
Yeah.
You would though, wouldn't you? Panic, if you're having to run around trying to disarm bombs, answering silly riddles and stuff like that, it'd be awful. The amount of stress that would put you under.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and they learn that he's actually watching them, or either he is, or there's other people watching as well. And the next clue they give them is that he said he's left something provocative on a train. And again, it's all timing. It's really, really clever. I know we've said before in different films that the plans are so extravagant and out of this world, but the reasons for that in this film is because he wants the police run ragged, because of the master plan is to break into the gold reserve in like the Wall Street part, the financial part of the city, and steal all the gold. Hence, having police run left, right, and centre, believing there's bombs that are going to go off and destroy people. I think it's a really very, very clever plan, and it's not over the top. And again, the fact that this was set and filmed in New York, which becomes like an extra in this film, it's such a good place to set and actually star in this film. It's brilliant. It's so good.
Do you know what? That's a very good point. The fact that the actual location becomes a massive part, doesn't it? Because of all the locations they go to and the way that, they talk about all sorts of different parts of it and how they get to places. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know America that well, but I think New York is probably, from what I see, is the best place you could have put this. You wouldn't have been able to put it anywhere else.
No, definitely. And again, it's great because you go Central Park, you go to the Wall Street side. Is it Staten Island, or it's just really, really good. The fact that they're driving through in a taxi through Central Park, and they actually got permission to do this. It's absolutely brilliant. It's it's just really entertaining. Whereas we were stuck in an airport last time, or we were stuck in Nakatomi Plaza, they got a free run, like Grand Theft Auto of the city to go where they want. Looks so good.
I remember this on the PlayStation. There was a game of the 3 first original Die Hards, and the third one was basically you drive a taxi from one location to another in a certain time. Yeah, that is basically what the third one was. So very simple back in day.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a really good idea. Again, when they need to get there, they call that ambulance in, and there's an officer down. Yeah. And he uses that American football reference, which I don't know anything about American football, a quarterback or running back or something.
Yeah.
And he follows the ambulance up the main high street just so they can gain time. And again, when you see the different views of New York, it looks fantastic. It's nice because sometimes they go to like Canada where it's cheaper and film there and pretend that it's New York. But it's nice that they haven't done that in this.
Yeah, no, it keeps it original, doesn't it? And the thing is, people that know these places would know that it's not there, if you see what I mean. So it's good that they've actually kept to it, and the people of New York have been kind enough to let them film there, and it's much more realistic in that sense.
Yeah, definitely. And it's the good thing also with having Samuel L. Jackson is that, as you said earlier, rightly so, that the pace of this film is so fast. It's constant. It's really intense. And that you can get Bruce Willis, like in the scene where they're looking for the bomb on the train. You've got Willis on the train looking for the bomb. And you've got Samuel L. Jackson rushing on his own kind of mission as well. And it works really, really well because you've got two sides. They're both doing stuff and they're both competent as well.
Oh no, yeah, definitely. It's because they take a risk, don't they? Because they have to go to a certain location, and which is the train station, isn't it? But Willis says he's going to get on the train to see if because obviously he said he's left a bomb on there. Simon has. So Zeus obviously goes to the payphone and gets a gun pointed at him by must be a rookie cop because he's shaking like a leaf.
Yeah.
And but it's a very good scene on the train. I have to be honest. Like the build up to what happens, and the fact that obviously Zeus has got his own issue with the copper, and he's like, I've got to answer this phone, mate. So either shoot me or just let me pick up the phone.
It is so good. Yeah. And it's great the way the guy says to him, bro.
Oh yeah.
Bro. And he loses his patience and temper with the guy on the phone. And as you said earlier, mate, that's when you got the really nervous copper there pointing the gun at him. And it's really intense because you can imagine at that time, and even now as well, that you've got a black person who's, I don't know what he's done. He's got no weapon on him. You've got a really nervous rookie pointing a gun at him. He needs to answer that phone. Otherwise, there's hundreds or thousands of people's lives at risk. And he does it anyway. Like, so fair play to Zeus for doing that. And then to find out that Simon says you've broken the deal because you're both meant to go to the train station. And you've got Willis who finds a bomb, and it actually is a physical bomb on that train. You don't know who to worry for kind of more. That is Samuel Jackson, is Zeus going to get shot, is Willis going to get blown up, is everyone going to get blown up?
Well, yeah, that's it. It's very intense, isn't it? You're completely right. It's really intense because like you say, you've got literally 3 different scenarios running at once, and he's already blown up a building, and obviously probably injuring a lot of people, potentially killing others. And now he's put one on a train, and it's just.
And it looks brilliant when that bomb goes off, and Willis throws the bomb out the back of the train, and the train derails on the underground. It's such a good stunt as well, and it's a practical stunt rather than the special effects. It looks incredible, and I think if this was special effects, especially knowing how bad it looked in Die Hard 2 when he jumped out of that plane, and this practical effect looks absolutely fantastic. And again, the reasons why he does this is so it disarms the alarm at their kind of like, what's it called, the Federal Reserve, the gold reserve in the city, isn't it? Which is really clever again.
Well, yeah, it makes a massive hole, doesn't it, near the vault, and it so they can get in and out easily, and it sort of skews up the system and everything else. But I found that the bits in this scene I found really funny was obviously when Bruce Willis is running through the train and he scares a woman when he's like, move your legs, and she screams really loud. And then like she's wearing this skirt and has got blonde hair and stuff. She's sort of an older lady. But when the train derails, they've obviously reused her again on the platform.
Oh, really?
Running away from the train. What the? So she got off that really quick.
I love continuity things like that. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It's so good. And again, the humor in this is very good, and you kind of get rewarded for watching and investing your time in like the first and second film. And that's when they speak about Simon, Jeremy Irons' character, and linking him to Hans Gruber being the brother of.
Yes.
And it's great because you've got the tropes of the agents. And like in the first one, Agent Johnson, Special Agent Johnson, no relation. And in the back of the van, you've got the 2 agents talking to him, and you've got the tropey guy sitting behind. And when he speaks to Simon, and Simon knows who's sitting there all too well, it shows how clever and switched on he is, that he's done this before.
Simon.
Inspector. Now, who from the FBI is in the van, I wonder? Let's see, almost certainly Cross. Come on, Andrew, say hello.
Hello.
And I know you never run alone, so say hello, Bill. Still trying to butch up by chewing on your glasses, huh? This, gentleman, as they say, is where the plot thickens.
He does. So you'd lose any street cred, anything. No one would listen to anything you had to say, no matter how serious or life-saving. If you've just been put down like that, then you're just never going to be taken seriously again. You'd wear contacts, I think.
That's the thing. As soon as you took your glasses off at any moment, they go, "Oh, you're going to chew your glasses, mate. You're getting a bit rowdy."
It's so good. Because I wonder why, when I first watched this, I remember Like it was chewing his glasses and thinking, well, he looks like an idiot. It's all a bit too tropey, but for them to kind of call it out themselves, I thought was really, really, really good.
Definitely.
And that's when they say that, what is there? They speak to Simon, and then he kind of comes up with his next riddle, and he says that there's a bomb in a school, and that they can't use the radios, and it's £2,400 bomb in a children's school, and that they can't call any resources in, and they just need to try and work it out themselves. Anything they call on the radio, then the bomb's going to be detonated. And it's great because you think he's blown up one department store, but women, children, elderly, any people would have died in that. And the fact there was a bomb on that train, I honestly remember watching this, believing that there would be a bomb in that school. And even though they'll evacuate the school, but the risk that something else up, I honestly thought that that's what's going to happen. So it plays out really well. It gets me so many times, this film.
It does, but it's because part of his conditions are, isn't it, that you cannot evacuate any school at all. You can't do anything. You can't use your police radios because that might set it off. You can't evacuate any schools because if we see anyone leaving the schools, we'll set the bomb off. You're just completely stuck. And to be fair, the chief is quite clever, isn't he? Because he said we can't evacuate, doesn't say anything about we can't search for it. And to have that sort of announced to say, well, because you sit there and you think, well, how the bloody hell are they going to get around this sort of thing?
And that's when I go back to saying, that he's got, for once, a competent team of police officers and detectives around him who really help push this film along, that you're not solely relying on Bruce Willis to solve everything else whilst he's on his own missions. And I think the film benefits so much from that.
Oh, completely. It's nice that, like you said earlier, that they all work together and they are cohesive, aren't they? And they all have their own jobs to go and do, and they do it well. Definitely.
And that's when it works so well in this film, you notice how poor it is. When I went back and I watched Die Hard 2, I don't quite know why I watched Die Hard 2 again. It was worse following watching this film. It was a lot. It's weird because I think this film flows so much. And so you get all of the police officers, they all get called, and it's great because you've got the people on the switchboards dealing with the usual 911 calls. And it's brilliant. I feel so sorry for the lady. It gets swamped. And again, I didn't mention earlier, you see all the dump trucks, and it was mentioned in a conversation when they were in the back of the van and they're talking about their police numbers, who they played the lottery on, which comes into the film in a second. That this is obviously the stolen dump trucks that was mentioned earlier, and it's great because it's nothing. I mention it very briefly, and it isn't where it's so bad that one of those comments where they break the fourth wall and they may as well look at the camera for something to remember later on.
Wink, wink. Trucks stolen. Yeah.
Even though all of these people do look like psychopath soldiers, it's quite funny. All the people who are construction and just driving trucks are really trim with shaved head and they look like nutters. But it's the first time you see properly in person Jeremy Irons, and I think he comes across really well as a baddie. And they were going to cast Sean Connery as Simon, but when he read the script, he said he didn't want to be cast as such a villain. So Jeremy Irons was given a role. I mean, do you think it would have worked better with Connery knowing who he is, or not really?
No, not at all. No, I think Jeremy Irons did a very, very good job. I think Sean Connery. I like Sean Connery as an actor, but I don't know. I can't see it myself.
No. I think that especially if Connery would have had to do an accent, we know how bad it was in Highlander when he had voice coaching lessons to try and be Spanish or Egyptian, and he was still Scottish. It would have been terrible. The film, I think, would have suffered from it. It would have been such a weakness in this film. And it's nice that Irons, he is ripped, don't get me wrong, but he's quite small of stature.
Yes.
It makes a refreshing change rather than having like an Arnold Schwarzenegger or a Stallone type character coming in with all muscles. it's all about brains and cunningness, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's all about his intelligence, isn't it? How he's obviously his plan is outsmarting basically the entirety of the New York Police Department and the FBI and whatever other agencies those people work for, rather than going around just smacking people up.
Yeah, and it's a shame because they do shoot Willis's mate, the detective, the one who talks about his badge number.
Yeah, that was massive foreshadow, wasn't it?
It was huge foreshadow, yeah. And Otto gets his badge, who looks like a complete psychopath. But it's it was a real shame. But again, I like the build-up when they're in this reserve, and they're so calm and collected that they've got their mission, and you can tell they're military people. Everything is so precise of them getting the money, and it's nice that it is pure greed. That's all it is. It's not like before where you had Hans Gruber, who was going on about kind of saving release these hostages in Afghanistan and islands and things like that, and it was political. This is, and you learn that it's pure greed by Jeremy Irons' character, isn't it? Even though he's made a deal that to steal the gold and then to dump it all in the ocean, and blow it up, basically, that it is just all about greed and money for Simon.
Yeah, well, I think, if I remember correctly, I might be wrong, but doesn't Hans Gruber basically give all those names to the FBI just to keep them busy?
Yes, yeah.
Doesn't he? So it's not. He is just like his brother. It's all about the money. He doesn't really give a shit about if they release the terrorists or not, and the IRA and everything. It's literally just to get them running around and stuff like that. But yeah, because in this as well, he turns around, Simon's henchman turns around and says, we've got to fulfill this contract. So it's interesting. We never find out who they work for.
It was Arabs. It was who initially kind of paid for him, who hired him to do this. And he was working on behalf of them. And then he obviously double crosses them. But
sorry.
One character I like is Katia, who doesn't say a single word in this, who is a complete psychopath. And when they're breaking into the Federal Reserve, and you've got that music playing, and she's walking along, she pulls out this really just awful, violent knife. It just looks sickening, and walks up to that poor security guard and just cuts his throat. It's just such a really powerful scene because he's terrified as it is, and she just walks up, doesn't break any emotion, doesn't say a single word, and cuts his throat.
It's a brutal scene, but I have to say I am not fond of her at all in this. I don't see the point of her at all.
Oh, really?
No, she's not a particularly attractive woman. Not that should matter, but she's obviously a love interest for Simon, and because she's always giving him the eye, and they're sort of have longing looks across the room, and she just goes and kills someone with a knife, which is cool, but I don't know. I just didn't get the point of her, to be honest. But I suppose that's differences of opinion.
Yeah, I think she's quite an interesting character. I'd like to know more about her. And when they have the sex session towards the end of the film, where Jeremy Irons, once their mission's been completed, and he chucks her on a table and they start having sex, that was a last minute scene that they just thought, sod it, I'll put that into it. Yeah, because they never planned on doing anything like that. But because John McTiernan thought, there's so much violence in this film, it's going to be R-rated anyway, why don't we just put a sex scene in here between these two, celebrating that their mission's been completed? And Jeremy Irons must have thought, yeah, game on, I'll definitely do that. You're not going to argue.
I would have asked for a stand-in myself.
It's all about these things called standards, whatever the Christ they are. No idea. But when they get to the fountain, I really like the chemistry between these two. I got to admit, I wouldn't have a clue. They've got two jugs and they need to pour out a certain amount of water into these jugs, put it on the scale or the bomb by the fountain, which has got families, which has got loads of members of the public by it, including a dog, that it will blow up. And I would not have a clue how to do this, would you?
I still don't know how they do it. So they've got a 5-litre jug and a 3-litre jug, and they've got to put 4 litres of fluid onto the scale.
Yeah.
Now, you know, McClane turns around and he goes, I'm stuck in the park playing stupid kids games. And obviously Zeus sort of goes, wait, come on, concentrate on what you're supposed to be doing instead of bitching about it.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, I'll be like McClane and go, oh, what? How the hell do I do that? Because I wouldn't have a clue. I would never Scooby-Doo. I'm that stupid.
I would. No, I got to admit, I wouldn't. Even when I watch it, I think I'm going to get it. I'm going to understand it. Just like the Matrix. This is an architect moment. This really is an architect moment. But I do like the fact that, again, it's Zeus who cracks it. Yeah. And the joy they get when he works out how to do it. I do enjoy this scene. I think it works really, really well. And it's just funny because I still, no matter how many times I've seen this film, and it's way into double figures. Yes. I still don't understand how you could do this.
I don't know. They even explain it, but even when they talk about it, I still don't get it.
It's brilliant. Me and you will be terrible. Just hope no terrorists listen to this.
Yeah, can we have Stu and Neil? We need them to run around. That's first thing. We don't run. And secondly, can they do these puzzles? Well, you might as well just give up now.
Yeah.
To be fair.
So funny. And the comment about leaving the bomb there, but some kid might get
it. Yeah,
it's great because that's quoted by the terrorists when they Samuel Jackson gives the bomb to them later on, and it's nice that the terrorist says, "Well, put it in the car because if a kid could pick it up." It's suddenly they get morals. But in these films, you get in every single Die Hard film that he stops the kids on the bikes. And he says, there is no cops around. Something's going on. He goes, you could steal City Hall. Out of everything, you could steal City Hall. And that's when he realizes, and you think that this is the cheesy part of the film.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is massively, isn't it? It's clever though. It is clever, but yeah, completely random.
Yeah,
how he figures it out.
I'd still never pick it up. I still wouldn't get it, but they do cycle there and they do go to City Hall, and I do like the bit where you've got Simon, who does show a bit of kind of compassion when Samuel Jackson walks up to him and he's go, I've got a Samaritan walking up to me. Do I kill him or not? And he says, no, let him live. And I was really surprised about that. And
I was.
I don't know why. Maybe because he's not a soldier, maybe because he's innocent, but he didn't like him earlier. So I was really surprised. And it would have been nice for him to say, if Katia would have said, why'd you let him live? To give an explanation.
Well, that's the thing, because his mate is getting really annoyed with him, isn't he? The fact that he keeps letting John McClane live, and it sort of progresses, doesn't it, later on the film. But I think the only reason, well, yes, you could be potentially right that he's sort of an innocent, if you like, and he does have some sort of morals in relation to killing innocent people to a certain degree, which doesn't make sense because then he blew up a train. But I think he enjoys toying with them so much that he's getting a massive kick out of it, and he doesn't want to just kill him like that. If he was going to kill him, he wants to kill him in a really convoluted way. Yeah,
it'll probably be a power thing, that he can kind of pull the strings and he's playing God to a certain extent, and that could be it. But when he goes to the Federal Reserve and the Willis scene in the lift, it's so good. It's like Captain America, a lift scene where he's in the middle, he knows something's wrong and he's waiting for it to kick off. And he deals with it so well, and that he just kicks ass. And it's really violent, it's really bloody. And he sees the number on the badge that Otto's wearing, and that's when he knows. Obviously, it plays into it, as you said, it's massive foreshadow. The 6991 badge number, and then he kills everyone in that lift. And it's not kind of done like Jean-Claude Van Damme. There's no art to it. It's just proper old school fighting and killing.
That's it, isn't it? It's just, right, I'm going to headbutt this one and then try and hold this one off and shoot this one. And, you know, it's pure fighting, isn't it? Rather than martial arts or anything like that. It's just, I need to kill everyone, otherwise they're going to kill me. Yeah. But I do wonder, like you said, actually, that's a very good point. I wonder if they got the idea from that Captain America scene from this. Because it's very similar, isn't it?
It is. The tension of just the bullshit they're talking in the lift. Just and knowing something's going to happen, Willis knowing something's going to happen, is so good. It plays out so well, just like the cap scene in Winter Soldier. It's brilliant. And that's when he finds his mate obviously murdered, and they realise that all of the gold has been taken, and it's nice because they wanted to show, and they kind of expressed in this that how heavy gold actually is.
Yes.
And I like the fact, because I mean I used to work in a precious metal company making gold ingots and titanium and palladium and silver for agriculture, and we used to kind of melt them down to make massive gauzes for the agriculture business because it didn't corrode as much when they put chemicals through it. And a gold ingot is really heavy. It's at nearly 3 stone, I think it is.
Jesus.
So it's great that they kind of showed this. And from leaving there, they're in this really wank car. It's really shit. And it's nice that they did get a shit car, because normally they'll take a Ferrari or some real Gucci car, just like in Bad Boys or something. But they're in like a Yugo or some shit car, aren't they?
They are. I love the fact that Zeus takes a gold bar as well. And McClane's like, you're not going to be able to keep that. He goes, we'll see. It's like fucking just nicking a gold bar worth God knows how much money. It's
Christ
brilliant.
knows. Yeah. He's buzzing. He's got that in the back of the car,
and
they want to know who the 43rd president is. That's part of like the next clue, isn't it?
42nd president, was it? Also,
yeah,
I don't know. Whatever it was,
it's some president, and it's it is great because again, it's something that possibly they should know. Mind you, I wouldn't know about the prime ministers because I couldn't give a toss about them. But who's the 21st president? And he shouts out to that guy when they nick his Mercedes. Who's the 21st president?
Go fuck yourself. And then he's like, "Oh, we'll cheer up in a minute anyway," because when he has a look on the back seat, and Zeus is like, "That's my gold bar." It's so pissed off. Good. Yeah,
it is such an appropriate answer that guy gives. I always do
definitely
exactly the same. It's so funny.
Yeah, definitely.
And so from here, they're evacuating the schools, which again is really good. And I like the fact that you got Charlie, who is at the start of it a kind of a cocky, tropey kind of bomb expert, that he kind of very happy-go-lucky. And it's nice that he gets a whole arc and he sacrifices himself. When you see later on in the film that when they do find this massive fucking bomb, it's absolutely enormous. And when it starts mixing the chemicals together and all the kids have been evacuated, just apart from 2 kids who are stuck in the school, that he says, no, I'll stay in the school. I will try and do this, even though you can tell he hasn't got a clue. It's too technical for him to actually disarm the bomb. But he stays there, and it turns out to be, is it treacle in the end or food colouring? Something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, no. It's something like that. It's food colouring or something like that, isn't it? Or syrup, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's going in
that's
his mouth. He goes, it's just syrup. Yeah.
And it's nice he gets his moment, and I think that works really, really well. And he becomes that hero. And you've got Simon who's calling up this on the radio to say that there's a bomb in the schools, and it caused absolute mayhem. And again, you've got all of these people in New York just rushing around, and the fact that it's on scene, it must have been carnage filming this.
Oh God, yeah. They must have closed all the streets and stuff, haven't they, for a long time to get all this done, because it would have been mental.
Yeah, definitely. I love, and they have them in this film. Again, I refer to Argyle. That these little characters who pop up, who are insignificant, and you know who I'm referring to, don't you?
Is this the truck driver?
Yeah, the truck driver.
He's a legend, isn't he?
Absolutely brilliant. They stop him believing that he could be one of the bad guys, and he isn't. And he knows everything. It's absolutely brilliant. He's such a great character, and even the way Willis talks to him is great. I just think it's so much fun. And thankfully, he's going to the aqueduct. He's delivering materials of where exactly they want to go. And he explains that it's a water pipe that goes on for about 60 miles. And that's when he realizes that Simon and all the other kind of goons are driving their truck through the aqueduct. And it's a really, really good scene. I think it's so different. I'd not seen, prior to this, not seen anything like this in a film whatsoever.
No, completely. It's because he's obviously going to the viaduct, isn't he? Because he's sort of figured out that might be where they've gone. And Zeus has been sent to the baseball ground, hasn't he? Because that's where they were supposed to go next.
Yes.
Which was really odd because they were just going to get shot.
Yeah, really strange.
But then he yet again decides that even though he's just one of them's turned up, he said, "No, don't shoot him."
Yeah,
you keep just leaving them alone. Yeah, you're really hitting your bedges now, edging your bets now, really, to turn around and say, "Oh, well, leave him alive." You know, eventually you're going to come a cropper, aren't you? It's not, you can't keep just doing it. But
I don't know why he left him alive then. I've got no clue.
I have no idea at all.
And as you said, mate, what a letdown it would have been. They would have done all of these missions, go to the ground or the stadium and just get shot.
Get shot.
That is it. It's just
a boring way, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Nothing else. But what I do like is when they're driving through the aqueduct through the pipes.
Yes.
And you've got the truck driver. I can't remember his name now, but I know he mentions
I think.
Jerry, that's it. Yeah. And he obviously knows who the president is. And the fact that he stops that truck, and it's the only Christmas reference we do get.
Hey, fellas, Mickey O'Brien, Aqueduct Security. Hey, listen, we had a report of a guy coming through here with 8 reindeer. Yeah, they said he was a jolly old fat guy with a snowy white beard. Cute little red and white suit. I'm surprised you didn't see him.
And he calls up again, so Simon knows that he is being chased by Bruce Willis. And it's great. It's really Indiana Jones when he knows he's in the aqueduct and he blows it up and he floods it. And you have to kind of suspend all kind of disbelief, isn't it, in these films when you watch all of them. When you've got the water going down there's no way that he would survive this when he floods. I don't know what river it's coming from, but all of it's underwater and it's utter nonsense, but it's so much fun.
It is very much fun, but you're right, it's complete nonsense when he tries outrunning the water in this truck and then climbs on top of the truck to grab a grate and he starts shivering because the water's really cold. The fact is that water would have ripped his arms off, and then he gets shot out of the top, doesn't he, because the water all fills up and it's like a cannon. He goes shooting up in the air. But I think the issue I've got with this scene is Simon turns around and he goes, there's $30 billion or something ridiculous in that truck. Can we make a deal? And he goes, yeah, I'll make a deal. I'll come and ram this lorry up your ass. And he goes, oh, how colourful. And his second in command goes, right, come on, lads, let's go and kill him because we've had enough of this now.
Yeah.
And then Simon goes, now we'll just blow up the dam. We'll just sink $30 million worth of gold.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like a really shit idea to me.
It's really strange, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah, it's weird, especially when you had so many opportunities, especially to kill Samuel Jackson alone, and you've blown both opportunities, and then you decide to do that. But I mean, it gets just. I mean, the last half an hour, possibly, last half an hour, are so over the top. I mean, they push even disbelief when they're on that bridge. Samuel Jackson, Bruce Willis, you can see they know that Simon is on a boat with all the containers containing that gold, and they pull that winch and they fall kind of hundreds of feet onto an iron deck of a boat, and they both live. It's just so over the top. I mean, I'm enjoying myself, and thankfully, because I'm enjoying myself, you just laugh along with it, don't you? If you didn't, and if it wasn't done properly, it would have killed this scene and this film.
Oh yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more, because when they were saying, he was originally saying, I'm going to jump, and Bruce Willis is like, no, don't, it's way too far. So they decide they're going to use a winch off a truck that they've nicked off 2 henchmen they've killed to then crawl along it. And yeah, they, even when they get discovered, and I like that bit, to be fair, when the truck falls out off the bridge and the wire cuts that guy in half.
Oh,
I thought that was quite cool. But the fact that they still fell, like you say, a good 100 feet onto some metal containers, and they're just like, ow, caught that a little bit, didn't it? Oh, let's not do that again.
It's proper Tom and Jerry violence, isn't it?
Yeah, it was massively, completely.
But it's great when he says, right, let's move the body away. And you got that guy and that picture of Samuel Jackson with the legs and Willis with the arms, because he's been split in half. It looks so funny. It really does.
You grab the legs, then all of a sudden they're both going in the same direction. It's like, oh, yeah, he's definitely an half. Oh, very good.
And it's strange because Willis, they obviously... They split up, which is never a good idea in any film whatsoever. And Willis gives him that machine gun, and the safety's on. You learn it later on when he points it at Simon, when Simon's confidently eating that boiled egg, and he says the safety's not on. Why didn't Bruce Willis or McClane turn that safety off, or even mention the safety on a gun? It's really bizarre that he didn't do that.
Yeah, it is odd, isn't it? So you just point and click, and it goes, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you need to turn the safety off. Oh, yeah, that would be a really good idea. Unreal. You'd be really annoyed, wouldn't you? Later on, you'd be going, you would turn around, wouldn't you, and say, you could have fucking mentioned the safety catch, mate, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Come on.
Especially if Simon then takes the gun off him and puts a bullet in his knee.
Later on, after all that, and you're hobbling around with a bullet in your leg, and you turn around, you bastard.
Yeah. There's other ways to learn a lesson.
Yeah.
And then whilst Willis is off looking, you get a scene which is really reminiscent of the first Die Hard, when he's fighting that brother at the top of the Nakatomi building.
Oh, yes.
And they're just going hell for leather. It's exactly the same, isn't it, as that scene, really?
It is completely the same. There's no real difference at all, to be honest.
No, not at all. And you soon learn after that that's when Jeremy Irons shoots one of the guys who's working for like the consortium, who's told him to blow up all of the gold, and he makes off, and they leave. And it kind of reminded me of the Joker, when they've got that big pile of money, but they've got a big pile of bombs with Bruce Willis, you got McClane and Zeus at the top of it. And it always amazes me in these films, and there's been so many films like this, when someone's been handcuffed in a bed. You even get this in Deadpool to a certain extent, when he's got a match in his mouth, and he flicks it out of his mouth, and he catches it in his hand. And in this, to get out of their handcuffs, they do exactly the same. They kind of defy the impossible of gravity and luck to capture these things, to unlock locks. It's so funny.
He's got a bit of wire, hasn't he, from the cable stuck in his shoulder. So he picks it out with his teeth and conveniently drops it into Zeus's hand, who's not facing him. And he can then, without looking, use this to unlock the fucking handcuffs while sitting on a massive bomb. It's, never in a million years. Never in a million years.
No, it's so funny. It doesn't make any sense. There's so much luck involved in something like that. But they do get off it, and just before they leave, Simon throws. Again, it's a really strange thing to do for someone you're about to blow up. A packet of headache pills, because McClane's still got a hangover and a headache. No wonder falling off a bridge onto a metal floor onto the boat. But he throws in the headache pills. Which is a massive foreshadow later on. But I do like the scene when they jump off the boat, and I think they never would have survived it. When you see that size of the explosion being an actual bomb they're sitting on, not a fake one this time, they'd never survived that in any day of the week.
No, they would have been blown to bits just from that explosion, because it even shows like the shock wave, doesn't it, of it going off and stuff like that. You know, they were they were blown off of the boat, they would be fucking dead. There's no way they would survive that.
No, as you say, it's like the shockwave of when the Death Star got blown up. It's absolutely enormous.
Must have been the photon torpedoes that they were strapped to.
But one thing, really, it kind of, you've gone through the bridge, absolute nonsense. Surviving it, absolute nonsense, and jumping off the boat, which is complete BS. And at this time, you think it's kind of over because you've got Samuel Jackson on a helicopter. He's out of it. He's back to being more or less a member of public and observer to everything that's going on. And he talks to Willis all the way through this of speaking to Holly, trying to get their relationship back. And whilst he's on the phone to her, waiting to speak to her, he looks at the bottom of the headache pills and realizes, because it's French writing, that of all the places, he must have gone to Quebec in Canada. And it's such a leap of pure guesswork, isn't it? I don't understand how he got to that place, and it's absolute nonsense. And then whilst they're on their boat going to Canada to celebrate everything, the NYPD literally then invade Canada to then get Simon and themselves rather than speak to the Canadian police. They even fly straight from that location in the same helicopter, don't they?
Yeah, it's really odd, isn't it? Because sort of going back a little bit, his second in command finds that the containers on the boat is full of scrap metal rather than the gold. So he sort of questions him and says he's been betrayed. And that was a really weird scene where the lady that you like shoots him, knowing that this was the plan all along, that they swapped out the gold, haven't they? And it's somewhere else completely. And they are both looking to each other's eyes as she shoots this guy dead, which is just so bizarre, but quite clever at the same time. But yeah, it's weird that they've sort of said, yeah, we've succeeded, but they're on the border of Canada with all these trucks of gold, and then all of a sudden they're like, try and get out, and instead of ramming through these shitty police cars with their massive trucks, they just stop. Like, okay, you got us. Yeah. And then this little helicopter that they've got there as well, just instead of just, do you know what? I've let them live too many times. I'm off. I'm going to escape. And with whatever I can, he then goes, oh, this is personal, and starts going after McClane again. It's like, oh dear God, how many chances do you want, mate?
It's strange, and the fact that they would bring Samuel L. Jackson, a member of public, fly him in that helicopter all the way from New York to Canada to capture this baddie. It's a really weird thing. And did you watch the alternative ending of this?
No, I've not seen the alternative ending. No.
Yeah, the alternative ending of this happens after the boat, after they kind of jump off the ferry or the cargo boat. It then goes to Simon, who's in Canada, or no, I think he's at Canada or Romania. He's some kind of Eastern, like European country, and he's sitting in a bar just having a drink. And you then get Bruce Willis walks in, and he gives a riddle to Simon, and it's something very similar to what's missing that you need to bring to a party. And he pulls out this bazooka. And it's like a little miniature bazooka, which is really weird of all things. And it's got all the stickers removed from it. And he puts it on a table in the bar and spins it. And he tells him to pull the trigger. And it's either a case of, I'm going to get blown up, or you are, because there's no stickers as to the direction it will fire. So Simon picks it up, presses the trigger, and it obviously blows Simon up across the table. And then Willis says the missing thing you should bring is a Kevlar jacket, and he's wearing one. And then it ends. It's really, really weird. Awful. Yeah, that's the alternative ending to this film. So maybe
I'm glad they didn't go with that one.
No, and that shows how bad it is. The fact that the better ending is the fact they got flown from New York all the way to Canada to go after him.
That's the best. Yeah. The best of two bad ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. If you go to alternative ending, Die Hard with a Vengeance. You can watch it on YouTube. It's really, really strange. But as you say, that they're circled by the NYPD in Canada, who's got full authority to do exactly what they want, and they could escape. And it's really weird. It's just such a rushed ending after all the things that have happened, and they've all been really, planned so well, especially by Simon, to have this shit ending of him shooting an electric cable that wraps around the rotor blades of the helicopter. And he says the famous yippee-ki-yay motherfucker, which you've got to say in a Die Hard film, but
oh yes,
it's just the toilet ending. And the fact that, and Samuel Jackson doesn't, that's what, he's so underused in this film. I mean, it would have had to be a different ending for him to be more involved, but it's just weird that he's there as a spectator, isn't it?
He wouldn't be there, would he, at all? There's no way he would have been there at all. So you're completely right. And because obviously, like you said earlier, Simon and his lady are doing it on the table, and then the helicopter light shines in, and John McClane goes, "Am I come at a bad time?" And so he just starts fucking absolutely taking the piss. But it is odd. It's so odd. And like you say, they then come out in the helicopter and chase around. And he's got this massive machine gun, and John McClane's his helicopter gets shot down, and they survive that. And then he's got literally 2 bullets, hasn't he? Left in his gun. And he's like, "Oh, show me your face, show me your face." And at any point he would have got shot by that massive machine gun, but for some reason doesn't. And then he's such a good shot that he can shoot that box all the way up a post in the dark. With a searchlight on his face, and then it's a rotor. Like you say, the wire gets trapped around the rotor, and they just blow up, and it's just weird. It's a very odd ending. To be honest, quite lazy. I found quite action packed, but a little bit lazy. Yeah,
and I think the original like the script, the Jonathan Hensley script, was going to be looked at as a possible Lethal Weapon script. I think it was Joel Silver was going to look at it, and then they decided not to, and that's why they kind of changed it. It wasn't going to be like Simon Says, but and that's why I think the last half an hour or the last 45 minutes of the films goes so awry in a weird direction that the dynamics change, that it goes off script from Jonathan Henley's original one. But it's such a strange ending, and I think, as I say, that this was the best ending out of the two. Is really, really weird. It ends with him ringing up Holly, and thankfully she's never in it. I don't think she needs to be in this film at all, does it?
No, she doesn't. Well, she was, like we spoke about in the second one, she was hardly in that, to be fair. And the best thing she did was taser the reporter. Richard Thornburg, but that's it. So I think if you put her in this one as well, it would have been unnecessary. So I'm pleased that she wasn't in it, which I know is quite horrible to her, bless her. But
well, no, I mean, as a plot dynamic, I mean, it's you don't need it at all, do you? To be honest.
No, completely right, completely.
But that was Die Hard with a Vengeance. I mean, I think out of the it's difficult. I do enjoy this film. The first film is the best film. It was groundbreaking. It was brilliant. It's a go-to film all of the way. And this film is a close second, but the last half an hour of this film, it goes in a strange direction. There's so many weird choices made that push this along. And I don't know why they went with this ending. The other ending, alternative one, was terrible as well. But I think if it was Willis on his own, it wouldn't have been as good. I think it's a massive strength that they've got Samuel Jackson there, and he kind of plays the common sense, and he does look at it from a member of public of what you can and can't do, against Willis's I can do whatever I like, because I really have got no respect for any kind of rules whatsoever.
Yeah,
and it is a good buddy cop that they play off each other really, really well. I mean, I don't think there's any kind of best standout bits in this. I think it's the first 2/3 of this film are just brilliant, non-stop action. The last third is pretty poor, to be honest. But I'd still, out of 5, I'd probably give this a 4 out of 5, just because it's just so much action happening. There isn't much downtime, and it's enjoyable. You know what you're getting with Die Hard. You can look at it and say, well, it's utter nonsense. But look at the first one. He jumped off a building, holding onto a fire hose, and went through the window. You know what I mean? And it's just utter nonsense. And how he lived through the first one and he's still walking, I don't know. So you know what you're getting.
Well, yeah.
But saying that, it does get progressively worse from here. So, but we'll talk about that when we actually review those films. I think the next one is Live Free and Die Hard. I mean, what's your thoughts on this film? Are you as buzzed as I am about this?
To be fair, because I love I do enjoy the Die Hard franchise, and I love 1 and 2. I think, like you said, and I completely agree with you, number 1 is the best. And I did really much enjoy 2 because it was almost pretty much a carbon copy, and they did it very well. And I always remembered this one as being my least favourite out of the first 3. But after watching it again to review it, I found myself really, really enjoying it. We obviously were going to do this before Christmas, and we ended up not. And I've quite happily watched this quite a few times in a row in quick succession, and I've not at any point gone, oh God, I've got to watch that film again. It's easy to watch. I really enjoy it, but I have to agree with everything he said. Really, the first 2/3 of the film, brilliant, really well thought out, excellent action, loads of suspense. You are on the edge of your seat thinking, oh my God, is he actually going to blow up a school? How are they going to get out of this? And then the final third is just absolutely ridiculous at points. But there again, so is Die Hard 2 to a certain degree as well. So I'd still say, due to the last third of this film, it's probably still my least favourite.
Really?
I really enjoy it. I really enjoy the first 2/3 like you did, but the final third and the laziness of the killing off the bad guy and some of the decisions that were made towards the end, I was sort of taken away from it a little bit. So I'd still rate it highly. I'd give it about 3.5 out of 5. I wouldn't go any lower than that, but I couldn't give it as much as 4, which I did for the first 2, because I don't think it's on a par due to the final third, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, with my 4, I'm going on. I mean, if you look at this as a film, just a film, that it's a weak film and it's way over the top and it's pretty poor. But mine's purely going on the Die Hard universe that they're in, and that's where I'm coming from, because otherwise it's just so over the top, and it's just a lot of it is pretty poor. But it's really weird that you kind of rate the second one over this one, and that you weren't looking forward to watching this one. I'm honestly really surprised about that.
Yeah, I just remember it. I think there's certain elements within the film. I don't enjoy the silly sort of marching music when they're going around the town, or in New York rather. That just sort of takes me away from it. And there was just things about it that I found a little bit frustrating. And it's, like I said, how many times do you give people a chance? You could kill these people numerous times, but you just stupid decisions. And like I say, the final third just took me away from it. It was still very good, and I'd recommend it to anyone to watch. If you like the Die Hards and you like action films, these are 3 of the best sort of action films you're going to do for people that haven't got any superpowers or all that sort of stuff. But yeah, for me, the first 2 are better, but that's just me.
No, it's great. I mean, that's why it's so good. Everyone's opinion differs. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I've not watched Live Free and Die Hard. I mean, this film was 12 years after Die Hard 3, and by then, that's when Bruce Willis's, his credit was absolutely down the toilet. I mean, he'd done a lot of shit films. I mean, off the back of doing Die Hard 3, I mean, he did some not, yeah, they were all right, not bad films. I mean, The Fifth Element, I mean, Armageddon, Mercury Rising, The Jackal, I mean, The Sixth Sense. I mean, he was kind of still very, very popular. He could still pull in like a big crowd. But when you think he was started to go on Tears of the Sun, The Whole 10 Yards, Ocean's 12, Hostage, and it just, his films, it was just weren't any good. I mean, the only good thing he really did, I mean, 2007, Planet Terror, he's good in that, but and The Expendables, again, that's kind of like a retirement home for cliched old heroes.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? He sort of started doing, which a lot of actors as they get older, they start doing sort of bit parts, don't they? And that's kind of what he started doing. He just started being parts within films rather than actually leading a film himself. Or if he did, I couldn't tell you what any of them were, because they obviously weren't good enough to raise my interest. But yeah, this one's Die Hard 4.0, isn't it? Outside of North America.
Yeah.
And I actually own this on DVD. So there you go.
That will be that. Do you know that it's really interesting that you own that, especially after not really kind of at the time being too impressed with Die Hard 3 that you went and got Die Hard 4.0.
But that's the thing, though, isn't it? I think if you're interested in the franchise, and I do like the Die Hard franchise, as much as the end of 3 disappointed me, I wanted to watch another one, hoping that it wasn't going to be another one of these Hollywood tropes of bringing it back years after and ruining it. But we'll have to see if they did do that or not on our next review.
Yeah, I saw this at the cinema. I mean, I remember seeing it at the cinema, and I just thought there were some really interesting characters in there. Maggie Q, I think it's absolutely fantastic. And Timothy Oliphant, I think he's brilliant.
He's a great actor, isn't he?
Yeah, so good. And Justin Long, Jeepers Creepers, he was still feeding off that as well. So, I mean, there were some really good characters in there. So it kind of did draw a massive crowd. I mean, I think this one made lots of money. I think it made 300 odd million, I think, or 200 odd million. It was absolutely huge. So it did really, really well. Die Hard 3 did, but Die Hard 4, I mean, it'll be, hopefully we can get everyone back to talk about that.
Nice.
I mean, for instance, it was a 110 million budget that made 388 million worldwide.
Cool. Nice.
That's a shock, especially after 12 years later. So obviously there was a need for Die Hard at that time, some good old fashioned police violence. So
definitely
that was what was needed. But so we'll talk about that. We'll be back next week with that. If not with that, because no one else can make it, then myself and Neil will pick some random film, no doubt. But we will definitely be back next week with another film. So is there anything you want to say at all before we go, my friend?
No, just thanks to everyone that's listening, subscribes. Please leave a comment and a like on Facebook. Not Facebook, sorry. Well, you can do, but I meant YouTube to help the YouTube channel, because Stu puts a lot of effort into that. So it would be very nice if you could do that.
Definitely, that's very nice of you. Yeah. We'll be back next week. Thanks very much. Hope you enjoyed this podcast, and you take care. Cheers, guys.